بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالعلم وزين أخلاقنا بالحلم وافتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. ثم ما بعد. What was the last topic that we discussed last week? Zakah on loans. Is that correct? MashaAllah. Yeah, you're right. Mortgage and other payments. In other words, deductions. You have a virtual pool of money with a certain amount of like dollars. All of them are zakatable. Yet you still have some payments. You owe the mortgage company, let's say $2,000 a month. And for the car payments, $500, for the furniture, $500, for the appliances, $500. Okay? Which part of those payments is deductible? Okay. You owe the mortgage company. Of course, I'm not talking about the status of mortgage, haram or halal. That's completely different discussion. Talking about the deductibility, okay, of those monthly payments from the zakatable money. Okay, which one is deductible? If your monthly payment is $2,000, if the annual payment is $24,000, if the outstanding balance, the total amount that you owe the mortgage company, let's say $150,000. Which one is deductible? The deductible one is the due one only, which is in our case $2,000 for the mortgage, $500 for the. You should not deduct the annual because again the annual is not due. Yes, you are paying zakah on an annual basis, but for this particular month, okay, how much you owe those companies, okay, those creditors, you just put it aside, okay. Some people mistakenly think that if the total zakatable amount for this year is $100,000, for example, and the outstanding balance for the mortgage company is $100,000, can I say, well, I have 100,000 and I owe the mortgage company 100,000, then I'm in debt, right? I don't have to pay zakat al-mal for this year. I would say yes, you can do that. You can say that only and only in one case. If you decide to pay off the outstanding balance in full, go for it. Yes, I know it is not due, but you do have the right to pay it upfront. Is that correct? Like early payment, and sometimes with no penalty. You know the amortization system here in the US. Your monthly payment is divided into two different portions. Certain portion goes toward the principal, and the other portion goes toward the interest if it is a traditional mortgage, or toward the profit if it is a halal mortgage. Okay, what I want to emphasize here is that if you pay extra on top of the monthly payment, that extra amount will go toward the principal, and consequently will reduce the interest or the profit. So anyway, if you decide to get rid of that loan, and I know a lot of people actually, they are involved in mortgage for 25, 30 years. Whenever Allah makes it easy for them, they just pay off the total amount in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, and they just have a clear title. Only in this scenario, if you decide to pay off everything, go for it. Number one, you get rid of interest, you keep it to the minimum, hopefully with the intention of repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from committing such a sin of being involved in riba. And second of all, you do have the right to pay it. If you pay everything, okay, like you close the balance, you make it zero balance with the mortgage company, then go for it. Otherwise the norm is to put aside the monthly payment. $2,000 for the house, put it aside. $500 for the appliances, put it aside. Put them aside, and then you move on with the rest of the amount, and you pay zakah on it accordingly. So only due payments are deductible from the zakatable money. Total balance of home mortgage or any other payments is not to be deducted because it is not due. It is not due yet. Logically speaking, if you want to deduct the mortgage for the next 20 years, okay, when it comes to zakah calculation, why do not you, using the same logic, why do not you pay zakah, okay, on the income for the next 20 years? If you want to go like 20 years ahead of time from now, then you need to take the whole package, right? Of course, you are not supposed to pay zakah 20 years ahead of time. Meanwhile, whatever is due after 20 years is not to be deducted for this year. You deduct whatever is due for this particular month. By the way, if you have some other expenses, can you put aside another $3,000-4,000 for your like monthly expenses, for your groceries, food, transportation, health insurance, whatever? Yes, you can, right? Any other due debt is deductible, even if you are in debt for someone, right? And the loan is due, put it aside. If the rest, okay, if the net amount is still $4,250 for this particular year, with the assumption that the gram of gold worth, how much we said? $50, right? 85 grams of gold times, times 50, that is 4,250. If you still, after all the deductions, you still have $4,250, then you have to pay zakah for this year. Determining the value of assets. Okay, you have a car dealership, and you have some cars on the lot on the zakah due date on the beginning of the month of Ramadan. How can you assess the value? Okay, assess the value of the commodities or the merchandise or the goods that you have, or you have a grocery store, for example. Based on what you can tell, okay, whatever I have in my store worth, let's say $70,000. Based on what? Some people actually go with the invoice value. Invoice value means how much you already paid based on the documents, based on the like bookkeeping system, how much you paid for those cars, and you pay zakah on it, right? Some people go with the retail value or the listing price, how much you are asking for. I would say both ways are not fair enough. Do not pay zakah on the invoice value, because the current value might be the same, might be less, and might be more. You never know. Okay, when it comes to like having clothes, for example, certain kinds of clothes might be out of fashion. Okay, you bought that shipment for $10,000 today. After 6 or 7 months, its market value went down all the way to $1,000. Is it fair enough for you as a zakah payer to pay zakah on $10,000 on something that does not worth more than $1,000? It's not fair. You see, so do not go with the invoice value, and do not go with the retail value. Retail value, how much you are asking for. You have 10 cars on your lot, and you are asking for $200,000. Do not pay zakah on $200,000, because you might get that amount and you might not. You never know. Okay. What is the right way or the most fair and just way of assessing or determining the value of the assets? You go with something called the wholesale market value. Wholesale market value means how much, if you do not have all those cars that you have in your lot and the zakah due date. If you want to go today to the auction and buy all these cars, okay, how much you are willing to pay to the auction to get all those cars? Okay, if you do not have any groceries in your store whatsoever, how much you are willing to pay to the suppliers or the wholesalers to get all the grocery items that you have? That is the wholesale market value, and you pay zakah based on it. Agricultural products, I'm not gonna spend time on it. Everything that is produced according to the Hanafi school of thought, whether it is irrigated land or non-irrigated land, the nisab is 5 awsaq according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is approximately 654 kilograms. Why I'm saying approximately? Because the wasaq, the Prophet ﷺ, it's a volume measure. It's not a weight. So 5 awsaq of wheat might be different, like weight-wise, might be different from 5 awsaq of barley, maybe, right? Or apple, if you want to go with the Hanafi madhab, you pay zakah on everything. So that's why I'm saying approximately 654. I'm not gonna spend more time in that, because we are not involved here in farming business. Livestock, for example, we do have a schedule here, for the sheep, lamb, and goat. If you have an ovine livestock versus bovine versus camels. Let me just skip all these slides. Okay, let's go to the zakah recipients. Those 8 categories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designated, mentioned by name in the Quran. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. Right? الفقير and المسكين could be used interchangeably. In fact, they are different from one another, and we have different madhahib on how to identify al-faqir and al-miskin. Some madhahib said al-faqir is the one who does have a source of income, but his or her source of income is insufficient for him. He makes $4,000 a month and he needs $6,000. That's faqir, right? Al-miskin is the one who does not have any source of income whatsoever. Some said no. Al-faqir is the one who asks publicly. He doesn't mind like standing and asking for sadaqah. While al-miskin is the one who is so shy and embarrassed, he does not ask publicly. Whatever the definition you want to go with, right? Al-faqir and al-miskin both are kinds of individuals in which they do not have what they need. They are needy individuals, if you wish, right? Whether they make money, do not make money, ask publicly, ask privately, do not ask at all. At the end of the day, they both actually are in need for your sadaqah. And bear in mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started with them. He said, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ. لِلْفُقَرَاء. There is a lam here, we call it lam al-tamlik. So you need to make sure that you give the money or you give the zakah to the needy individual, whether a faqir or a miskin. Okay? Of course, with some exceptions, if you are positive that faqir or that miskin, okay, is not that prudent, not that wise individual, right? He doesn't know how to spend the money accordingly. Can you buy maybe food or groceries and give to the family to make sure that he does not buy maybe cigarettes or buy something that makes no sense? Yes, you can do that. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure that number one, you start with those categories before other categories. And number two, you start with the local individuals. It makes no sense whatsoever that some fuqara and masakin in your local community praying next to you every day in the salah, waiting desperately for the month of Ramadan. And when the month of Ramadan comes, you tell them, you know what? I sent my zakah overseas. That is not right. It defeats, subhanAllah, the spirit and the purpose of the zakah. So you start with them. Fuqara wal masakin. Al-amilin alayha are the zakah workers. Nowadays here in the US, for us Muslims in the US, those like charity organizations, their team, their consultants, their employees, okay, are amilun alayha. So they deserve to take a certain portion of the zakah that is sufficient for them. If someone with an IT background, okay, if he works in corporate America for $70,000, per year, it's fair enough to pay him $70,000 whenever he works for a charity organization. We should not underestimate and underpay our Muslim brothers and sisters who work in the Islamic field. We should pay them fairly. So that is al-amilun alayha. Al-mu'allafati qulubuhum are the new Muslims. Okay? What if someone is almost there, but he or she is not a Muslim? We have a well-established actually debate between the four different madhahib. We have two madhahib are of the opinion that non-Muslims are not eligible to take from zakat al-mal. And two other madhahib says no, non-Muslims, as long as they are close to Islam, potential Muslims, they show the kind of interest or even respect to Muslims, they might become Muslims one day, we still can give them from zakat al-mal. To my knowledge, non-Muslims should not take from zakat al-mal, period. Because we do not collect zakat al-mal from non-Muslims, right? We collect zakah from Muslims. So it's fair enough to pay it back to the Muslim community. Go ahead and pay sadaqah and donation and gifts to your non-Muslim friends or non-Muslim fuqara in your neighborhood. That's absolutely a kind of devotion and a rewardable act of worship. But when it comes to the technical zakah, the 2.5%, do your best, stay on the safe side, make sure that your zakah is given to Muslims and not to non-Muslims. Al-mu'allafati qulubum could include the new converts who suffer alienation and estrangement after embracing Islam. Number two, leaders who have an influence on their non-Muslim followers. Leaders, in which if they accept Islam, maybe hundreds of people or thousands of people might follow them, which is very possible. Being a Muslim is a condition for the eligibility for receiving zakah under this category. Again, to my knowledge, stay on the safe side, do not pay zakat al-mal to non-Muslims. Practically speaking, a lot of Muslim organizations, when they do a food drive or soup drive or winter winter shelter or whatever the charity program might be, they do not discriminate. They cannot ask people, are you Muslim? Here you go, here is your package. Non-Muslim, get out of here. You cannot take. It doesn't go this way. It's very embarrassing. So if you are on the spot, you are in charge of a certain program, and this money is zakah money, well, I would say be flexible enough and just go with the other opinion that non-Muslims can take from zakat al-mal. If you can avoid that ahead of time by designating the zakah fund for Muslim programs only, other fund for the general public, Muslims and non-Muslims, I would say that would be way better. في الرقاب, in the bondage, slaves and captives. This is one of the ways that Islam stood against slavery. Al-Gharimin, the debt-ridden. Someone is in debt, right? Can he claim Zakat al-Mal? Yes, he can, with 3 conditions. Number 1, the debtor must be in need for the financial aid, which means that if you make $7,000, for example, a month, and you spend 5, you can put $2,000 aside and just save some money and pay off your debt. You take care of yourself. If that is the case, you cannot claim Zakat al-Mal. You cannot ask for Zakat al-Mal. But if you make 7,000 and you spend 7,000 every single month, it means that you're going to stay forever, to pay Zakat al-Mal, and you won't be able to. Number 2, the debt was incurred because of a lawful expenses. For a legitimate reason, you borrowed some money for the rent, for a surgery, for tuition fees, for food, for groceries, anything that is really needed. And number 3, the debt is due immediately. It is a due one. If the debt is not due, due maybe after years from now, then it's too early to ask for Zakat al-Mal. Fi sabilillah, in the cause of Allah. That's a very, highly demanded issue. Can I pay Zakat al-Mal to sponsor my local masjid? Well, we need to elaborate a little bit here. Fi sabilillah, traditionally, throughout the Islamic history, from the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ and then Khulafa Rashidin after that, traditionally speaking, this category was designated for the volunteers among the mujahideen who used to go with the Prophet ﷺ in expeditions, maybe for days, for weeks, sometimes for months, right? They all were volunteers, okay? They just close their business and go, for jihad, for legitimate jihad activities, okay? With no source of income for their family members. So at that time, it made a lot of sense, to designate that amount for those people, right? Linguistically speaking, fiqh-wise, there is no evidence that fi sabilillah, for the cause of Allah, cannot mean anything else other than the mujahideen. See the difference between the common practice, the tradition from one side, and the fiqh from the other side. Fiqh-wise, there is no point, there is no evidence, okay, to support the fact that fi sabilillah could not mean anything else other than the mujahideen. Well, it could be. Even in the Quran itself, يجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم. They apply jihad, okay, with their wealth and with their souls. So jihad actually could apply to paying money for the cause of Allah. Okay, are you catching up with me here? In the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "جاهدوا المشركين." That's an authentic hadith. جاهدوا المشركين بأموالكم وأنفسكم وألسنتكم. Apply jihad against the enemies of Islam. Of course, not every single polytheist is an enemy. As long as he or she shows animosity and hatred, then that person is an enemy. So he said, apply jihad against the enemies of Islam with your wealth. With your wealth means by paying money, right? Lives, by applying the actual physical jihad, and tongues, which means through education, right? Through the da'wah activities and interfaith dialogue and on. So according to the hadith itself, jihad actually could include the physical one, the educational one, and the financial one. جاهدوا المشركين بأموالكم وأنفسكم وألسنتكم. This is one thing. The other thing, the other hadith actually, someone brought a camel, okay, and he said, "Ya Rasulullah, I want to put it fi sabilillah. قال ضعه في الحج فإن الحج في سبيل الله." You can designate that camel for hajj purposes. Like if someone wants to perform hajj and he or she does not have a camel, then he can use it as a ride, okay, for hajj purposes and just bring it back to Baytul Mal, right? So the Prophet ﷺ actually is the one who called al-hajj fi sabilillah. Al-hajj fi sabilillah. Because of all these evidences, it became obvious for contemporary fiqh councils, starting with the very historic fatwa back in 1405 after Hijrah, that is 37 years ago. The Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League, they said that da'wah activities, anything that helps in establishing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, supporting the deen of Allah azza wa jal, whether it is a masjid or a school or a university or like civil rights, organization, charity organization, educational, political organization, as long as there is a need for it, and you feel the leadership of that particular organization, you see the benefit of having that organization, you trust the leaders of that organization, you can definitely pay zakatul mal, for this purpose. So based on that, this fatwa actually was issued by the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League the Muslim World League, and then after that, our sister organization, European Council of Fatwa and Research, issued a fatwa that is almost identical to the first one, and then our own Fiqh Council, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, AMJA, Majma' Fuqaha Sharia of America, we issued a fatwa that yes, as needed, the category fi sabilillah could be spent for building, for constructing, for expanding, for covering the expenses of the masajid and the Islamic organizations. I would say be prudent, responsible, and wise enough. You live here in this society, and you know how much is the need for your money to establish Islam, to enroot Islam in this society. The sadaqat and the donation are insufficient. Okay, this is a very secular society. All the places of worship in the whole nation, from coast to coast, were built from the pockets of the congregation of that particular tradition or religion. Okay, I'm not aware of any church or synagogue or a masjid or any place of worship built in the US, sponsored or funded by the federal government or the state or the county government, right? Everything actually comes from donation. Do we need to designate our zakah money to support our Islamic organizations? My answer is absolutely yes. I have been living in the US for the last 21 years, and I feel the pain of those Islamic organizations on how to secure enough fund to run and operate and expand and serve, the Muslim community at large. So go ahead and pay zakatul mal to sponsor your local masjid, your local Islamic school, your local Islamic university, civil rights, whatever the amal Islam or Islamic work might be, as long as you see the benefit of that organization, that kind of work, as long as you trust the leadership of that organization, you can definitely pay zakatul mal. Can you pay zakatul mal to the ISGH? Yes, you can. To your local masjid directly here? Yes, you can. What else? ISNA, ICNA, MAS, Islamic Relief, ICNA Relief, you name it, right? Again, take them one by one and just be just and fair with yourself. Okay, ask more about those organizations. If they serve the community and you trust them, go ahead and pay zakatul mal to them. The last one is Ibn Sabil. Ibn Sabil is the wayfarer. Anyone who is stranded by circumstances without access to money for basic needs. Nowadays here in the US, we have a lot of refugees and political asylees who came from overseas, maybe from Somalia, maybe from Kashmir, okay, different places in the world. Maybe back home they are wealthy enough, or at least they are not needy. Okay, but while living in the US, they do not have an access to their wealth. They cannot bring the fund or the assets here to the US. So they have been stranded, right? Can they apply for zakatul mal? Yes. Are they eligible zakat recipients? The answer actually is yes. So refugees and political asylees and travelers are included, of course, as long as they do not have whatever is sufficient for them. Now, who is not supposed to take from zakatul mal? The rich, the one who is wealthy enough, the work and earning capable. If someone is young and healthy enough and can work, but he does not want to work, well, he cannot ask for zakatul mal. Devotees who refuse to work, like those monks who are staying in the place of worship and just keep praying the whole day long, they are doing a good job, but they benefit themselves. They do not benefit the society at large, so they cannot take from zakatul mal. Renouncers of Islam, if someone is explicitly standing against the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course you cannot give him from zakatul mal. Non-Muslims, as I already explained, ascendants and descendants. Family members, all your family members, right? And extended family members and relatives are eligible. Zakat is, of course, if they are like poor or masakin. Or the only two categories that you need to avoid are the ascendants, your parents, your grandparents and up, your children, your grandchildren and down, right? Ascendants and descendants. Anything else like your siblings, cousins, paternal uncles, maternal uncles, paternal aunts, extended family, anyone from your family can take from zakat al-mal, including your own blood brother, like your own full brother. And by the way, you do not have to tell him or her that this is my zakat. Just give him the money without making any comment. Even if he asks you a question, is this zakat? You can tell him, well, this is a gift for you. Okay? I mean, you give it to him as a gift, but your intention is that this is zakat al-mal. One more slide, inshallah, to go. Restrictions on distribution. Well, there are no restrictions actually. Number one, no maximum amount to give to one recipient. There is no ceiling or threshold where you cannot go like above. No obligation to distribute zakat to all 8 categories. You can designate your zakat this year for the widows, for the fuqara, for the students. It's up to you. No obligation to give via cash money. You can pay in kind, you can pay in cash. If you have agricultural products like farming business, you can pay your zakah crops. If you have cattle, you can pay your zakah cattle. If you have cash money, you can pay whatever you want. No obligation even to give all poor people in the area. You have maybe 7 or 10 different individuals in your community, they are in need for the money. You found out that one of them only is in desperate need for your zakah more than anybody else. Can you give your whole zakah to one individual? The answer is yes, you can. No annual distribution is required. Paying on monthly basis is acceptable as long as you pay in advance. That's a good point. If you know in your experience that your zakah every year is $10,000 and you have a doubt whether or not I will be having $10,000 cash available, accessible on the zakah due date to pay, can I make a payment plan with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ahead of time? Can I start paying zakat al-mal in advance? So whenever the month of Ramadan comes, I'm already done with my zakah. Or I paid already 90% of my zakah. Yes, you can do that. But make sure that you pay your zakah in advance. Okay, do not make an installment after the due date. If it is your zakah due date, right? And you have the money available, accessible, and the eligible zakah recipients are there, you cannot make an installment. You have to make sure that you spend like you give zakat al-mal to its legitimate recipients as soon as possible. Few different issues, inshallah, I will leave them to next week. Inshallah, next week, inshallah, will be the 4th and the last, inshallah, presentation all about zakah for Muslims in the US. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una, ta'ana ma 'allamtana wa zidna ilma. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.